Hello, everyone, once again. This is Rob, and welcome back to Media Awareness and another album review. Before I continue, however, I just want to remind you all that the fundraiser is still continuing. For those of you unaware, I am a disabled individual, and I use a motorized wheelchair slash scooter all day, every day for my independence. And although many of the goals have been met in terms of keeping it operational, there is still a long way to go, and your continued support is greatly welcome. My insurance will not cover any of this, so it is being uh, basically tended to by the spot fund account below. It's linked in the description, very easy to access. And if you could please donate $10 to the spot fund account, it would be greatly appreciated. If you can do more, that's wonderful, but I'm only asking for $10 a person, and it all adds up over time. So thank you in advance, and thank you to those who have already contributed. I love you all, you're wonderful people, and please continue watching my channel. If you are new, please consider subscribing to my channel and liking and sharing this video. I hope that you enjoy what I have to say about this. So this is an album review, pardon me, of the new Neal Morse studio album entitled The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1. Now this is considered a Christian progressive rock opera. Try saying that 10 times really fast. And I've been a fan of Neal Morse now since roughly 2003. And just a brief history so that way you can understand his relevance musically. Neal Morse was the founding member of a progressive rock band known as Spock's Beard. Spock's Beard is a traditional progressive rock band, but a modern day traditional progressive rock band, as in they were founded in the mid to late 1990s, and as opposed to the 1960s or 70s. And but the style of music is reflective of 1960s and 70s prog rock. So it's very much in that vein as far as Spock's Beard. Neal Morse left Spock's Beard to embark on a solo career and to follow his passion as a Christian. And he released what would be considered, I guess, his third solo album, Testimony, back in the early 2000s. Um, and I had the pleasure of seeing Neal on that tour. And it was really just an incredible experience. That being said, and several albums later, we have, I do mean several, we have The Dreamer. Now, Neal is also part of other projects. He has the Neal Morse Band. He's part of Flying Colors, along with Steve Morris and Dave LaRue, both members of the Dixie Dregs. Steve Morris also a guitarist for Deep Purple. And Steve Morris actually also plays guitar on The Dreamer. So it's rather relevant to mention him. Neal has many projects, but his solo career and his passion is really expressing his his beliefs. And what's interesting is it's not The Dreamer Joseph Part 1. I had heard the one single, Like a Wall, it's called. And I'll link that below because I think it's a really good example of what to expect from this album. Uh, the Dreamer, it's not a preachy album like some Christian progressive rock or Christian rock for that matter can be. it's more entertaining and it's more just methodically thought out, and it unfolds like a play, which is how a good rock opera should. There are many guests on this album, as I said: Steve Morse, Ted Leonard, the newest vocalist for Spock's as well as Enchant, um, and Eric Gillette, who's a member of the Neal Morse Band, and others. And this album is jam packed with guest vocalists, guest performers, and it's really just a very energetic album. But it also tells the story of Joseph, um, and it's it tells. This is part one, as I said. Part two is scheduled to follow in 2024, and evidently Neal is currently writing and recording or finalizing that process, perhaps, on The Dreamer Part 2, Joseph Part 2. But at the moment, we have Part 1. And before I continue with this review, I do want to say I want to extend a really gracious thanks to Amazon.com because I pre ordered this album from Amazon and I expected it on the day of its release, August 11th. It is currently August 16th, and it's still not in my hands. So how am I reviewing this? You might ask yourself. Well, after several calls to Amazon over the weekend and realizing that it wasn't arriving, I did speak to them yesterday on August 15th, and I was clarified that the pre-orders for this album exceeded expectations from Amazon. Therefore, they got behind, and my physical copy will not be arriving until late September, mid to late September. They were kind enough to issue credit for the download of the album, so I could at least listen to it and do my review here. So I do want to thank them for that because that was really noble, I think, of them. And I'm glad they did because it was really a refreshing listen. Now, Neal Morse, you can listen to his albums, his Christian albums, as Christian albums, or you can just listen to them as entertaining progressive rock albums. Like I said, they are not preachy per se, as a lot of Christian rock can be. It's more entertaining and well written rock music. And Neal is an artist that crafts some of the best rock songs you will ever hear. And if you check out like a wall that I'm going to link below, you will see what I mean by that. It is just an amazing track. And it's a good intro to Neal's material, in my humble opinion. Now, The Dreamer, part one, ends off with Joseph being held in captivity, and part two will pick up from there. But the journey that part one takes us on, musically and lyrically as well as vocally, is just amazing. It is one of the best albums I think Neal has done in terms of his solo work and in terms of his Christian progressive rock solo work. Um, this album really stands out to me as just well performed, well written, and the production is just phenomenal on this. Everything is very crisp. It sounds uh, very fresh, and at the same time, it has that sort of classic progressive rock feel that gives it a sort of timeless quality. I know a lot of people tend to associate the progressive rock sound with the 1960s and 70s in particular, but this album and Neal's work in general, along with a lot of the other modern day progressive rock bands, although they sound retro, that retro sound has sort of taken on this timeless quality of its own. And in my opinion, this album really stands out among Neal's material as far as being an amazing album. Uh, I'm still working my way through this album. I've listened to it twice so far since yesterday, and there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to unpack, but at the same time, it's an enjoyable listen. It doesn't tax you as a listener. It entertains you, and like I said, no matter your beliefs, whatever they are, you'll you'll appreciate this album. Like I said, it is technically Christian rock. It is technically Christian progressive rock, which is probably the most unusual thing that you'd hear, but it works magnificently. And because of the rock opera nature of this album and of much of Neal's work, it really works amazing. This album is available on Frontier Music, one of the many great record labels out there today. And as I said, I was hoping to at least have this album in hand to do this review with, hence the delay on this review. Because I was going to listen to the album on Spotify. It is available to stream as well. But I wanted to have a physical copy in hand to display for you and to review the packaging as well. Unfortunately, that was not the case. That was not to be. But with that stated, I would definitely check out this album. Uh, like I said, takes you on this epic journey, sonically and lyrically, and performances are some of the best you will ever hear ever. And I mean that with all due sincerity to everyone out there. I mean, these are some of the best vocal and musical performances you will ever hear. And like I said, lyrically as well. Neal is really an amazing lyricist. And he's an amazing vocalist as well. But lyrically, he crafts such clever and such amazingly catchy tunes that they get stuck in your head, and it's hard to not hum them or just kind of think of them throughout the day as your day is going along. And that's a sign of a great songwriter, in my opinion. You know, if they can craft a song that gets stuck with you and gets stuck with you in a good way, it's a good thing. And that's what Neal does with The Dreamer Joseph Part 1. So, this is an album to definitely check out, and I would highly recommend this album. This will probably be on my top 10 albums for 2023. There's still several months to go before the end of the year. We are only in August. However, uh, this album really impressed me tremendously, and I didn't know what to expect from it. In all honesty, I'd heard Neal's previous albums. I own them all on CD, at least the studio albums and most of the live albums. But I wasn't really sure what to expect from the Dreamer, and I was impressed with Like a Wall. But when I heard the opening to the album and then the overture and just how it takes you through these moods and segments and sections and pieces, much like a classical piece would, or much like a rock opera, or like a play, because that's in essence what this is. It is essentially a dramatized musical play, and it really works well. So I hope you do have a chance to check out Neal Morse The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1. No matter what your beliefs are, as I said, this is an album that I would not necessarily say is strictly designed for Christians. I think it's across the board. It appeals to a mass audience, in other words. And much of Neal's, if not all of Neal's solo work and other associated work, does the same thing. He always tends to just write these incredible songs that are accessible for a mass audience, not simply a a certain demographic. He's widely accessible, and I would definitely check out The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1. I'd highly recommend this album. And with that stated, I do hope that you enjoyed this review, and albeit somewhat brief. I wish I could show you the album and do the whole thing where I hold it up and show you the artwork and stuff, but unfortunately that wasn't meant to be. When I do get the album, I will eventually have it in hand. But at the current time, that's not the case. That being said, I do hope that you all check this out and that you enjoyed this review, all in all. This is Rob with Media Awareness. Please, once again, don't forget about the fundraiser for my wheelchair / scooter, and please do your best to contribute $10. If you can do more, that's wonderful, but I'm only asking for $10 a person. Then that can go a long way towards having me maintain my current level of independence in my life, which is of primary significance to me as an individual in my everyday life. I will see you all again soon. Please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell icon, all that stuff. And I will see you soon. Have a wonderful morning, noon, or night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.